At 5:14 a.m. on October 7, 1919, under a sky pregnant with the season's first frost, Hermann Schneck cranked the massive flywheel of his Titan Type D 3060 tractor. The machine that would forever change how America thought about agricultural power squatted in his Iowa cornfield like a mechanical leviathan. 26,000 pounds of cast iron and steel. A four-cylinder engine that consumed kerosene like a house fire consumes oxygen. The first production tractor capable of generating 60 drawbar horsepower. What Schneck didn't know, as the enormous engine shuddered to life and began its characteristic earthquake rumble, was that within 18 months, this exact machine would be declared illegal to operate in 7 states. Not defective, not unreliable. Too powerful. The mathematics were brutal. 60 horsepower meant the Titan could pull implements that required 3 conventional tractors. A 16-bottom plow instead of the standard 5-bottom, disking 40 acres per hour instead of 12. Breaking prairie sod that had defeated farmers for generations, but mathematics, as Schneck would learn, couldn't account for human error multiplied by mechanical force. The Type D had been conceived in desperation. International harvesters engineers, watching smaller competitors gain ground in the tractor market, received a directive in 1918 that bordered on the impossible. Build the most powerful farm tractor in America. No compromises. No safety margins that might limit performance. Raw, unfiltered power. Chief Engineer Walter Chrysler approached the challenge like a man possessed. The standard practice involved limiting engine displacement to prevent catastrophic failures. Chrysler eliminated displacement limits. Conventional wisdom suggested governed engine speeds to protect mechanical components. Chrysler designed the Type D to run ungoverned, capable of producing maximum power until something broke. The result was a machine that generated more torque than locomotives used for switching freight cars. The engine specifications read like a ship's power plant. Bore and stroke, 6.5 inches by 8 inches. Total displacement, 1,060 cubic inches. Compression ratio, 4.8 to 1. Operating speed, 500 to 750 RPM. Fuel consumption, 12 gallons of kerosene per hour under full load. The transmission, a massive 3-speed unit with gears cut from solid steel billets, could multiply the engine's torque to generate 12,000 foot-pounds of pulling force at the drawbar. But numbers couldn't capture what happened when 26,000 pounds of tractor met immovable objects. Hermann Schneck discovered this on his 3rd day of operation. The Titan, pulling a 16-bottom Oliver plow through virgin prairie, encountered a buried boulder. On a conventional tractor, the engine would have stalled, or the implement would have lifted harmlessly over the obstruction. The Type D didn't stall. The boulder, estimated later at 4 tons, emerged from the earth like a whale breaching the surface. The plow frame, designed for maximum strength, transmitted every ounce of the tractor's power directly to the buried stone. When something finally yielded, it wasn't the boulder. The plow frame twisted into a pretzel of bent steel. 3 plow bottoms, each weighing 150 pounds, launched skyward and embedded themselves in the soft earth 30 yards away. The sudden release of tension snapped the drawbar with the sound of a cannon shot and sent the Type D lurching forward at full throttle, its operator clinging to the steering wheel as 26,000 pounds of runaway tractor careened across the field. Schneck managed to reach the fuel shutoff after a quarter mile of terror. The tractor, gradually losing power, finally ground to a halt 50 yards from his neighbor's barn. The incident cost him $800 in implement damage, more than many farmers earned in a full year. But Schneck's experience was far from unique. Reports began flooding into International Harvesters headquarters in Chicago. A Type D in Nebraska had pulled so aggressively through heavy clay that it broke the neck of the farmer operating it when the machine hit a concealed stump and bucked like an untrained horse. In Kansas, another machine had generated enough pulling force to uproot a century-old oak tree that a farmer had attempted to remove by chaining it to the tractor. The tree fell directly onto the operator's farmhouse. But the incident that ultimately prompted legislative action occurred on November 14, 1919, near Peoria, Illinois. William Koehler, a 23-year-old farmer, was using his Type D to pull a massive stone boat loaded with field stones, a common practice for clearing land. The implement caught on a fence post hidden beneath the stone pile. Instead of stalling or breaking free, the Type D generated enough torque to snap the fence post at ground level. The sudden release catapulted the stone boat forward, striking Koehler and killing him instantly. The physics were undeniable. A conventional tractor, generating perhaps 25 horsepower, could exert dangerous forces. The Type D, with its 60 horsepower and ungoverned engine, could apply lethal force to any object that resisted its pull. Worse, the machine's weight and power made it virtually unstoppable once momentum built. Several operators reported being unable to stop their tractors on hillsides, even with brakes engaged and the clutch disengaged. News of Koehler's death reached the Illinois state legislature within days. Farm safety had become a growing concern as mechanical power replaced animal power, but most accidents involved operator error or mechanical failure. The Type D represented something unprecedented. A machine whose normal operation posed inherent dangers that no amount of careful handling could eliminate. State Agricultural Commissioner James Morrison convened emergency hearings on December 3, 1919. Testimony revealed a pattern of incidents that defied conventional understanding of farm equipment safety. The Type D didn't just fail, it failed catastrophically, with enough force to destroy buildings, uproot trees, and launch implements hundreds of feet through the air. Morrison's engineers conducted controlled tests using a Type D provided by International Harvester. The results were sobering. The machine could generate 14,200 pounds of pulling force at the drawbar, sufficient to move a loaded freight car or drag a small building from its foundation. When pulling against immovable objects, the tractor's own weight became irrelevant. The machine would continue applying force until something broke, regardless of the consequences. Dr. Franklin Hughes, professor of mechanical engineering at the University of Illinois, testified that the Type D represented an engineering philosophy fundamentally incompatible with safe agricultural operation. The machine had been designed to maximize power output without consideration for the forces it might encounter or the limitations of human operators. In Hughes' assessment, the Type D was essentially a stationary engine mounted on wheels, capable of tremendous work, but lacking the built-in safety limitations that made other tractors manageable. The Illinois legislation, passed on February 12, 1920, was elegantly simple. No tractor capable of generating more than 45 drawbar horsepower could be operated on Illinois farms. The law included provisions for testing and certification, effectively banning the Type D and any similar machines. Within 6 months, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Indiana had enacted virtually identical legislation. International Harvester's response was swift and angry. Company lawyers argued that the legislation represented government overreach and would stifle agricultural innovation. They pointed out that steam-powered threshing machines had operated safely for decades with similar power outputs. The comparison was flawed. Threshing machines remained stationary during operation, while the Type D's mobility multiplied its dangerous potential. The legal challenges failed. More damaging to International Harvester was the market response. Farmers, initially attracted to the Type D's raw power, began to understand that more horsepower wasn't necessarily better. The machine's fuel consumption alone made it uneconomical for most operations. Its weight caused soil compaction that reduced crop yields, and the constant risk of catastrophic failure made it impossible to insure. By September 1920, International Harvester had discontinued Type D production. Of the 847 machines manufactured, 312 were eventually converted to stationary power plants for sawmills and grain elevators. Another 200 were exported to Canada and South America, where power limitations didn't exist. The remainder were scrapped or abandoned, too expensive to operate and too dangerous to sell. The Type D's legacy extended far beyond its brief production run. The machine forced agricultural engineers to recognize that maximum power wasn't the primary goal in tractor design. Balance became the new priority. Sufficient power for demanding work, but not so much power that normal operation became hazardous. Every modern tractor incorporates lessons learned from the Type D disaster. Power takeoff systems include automatic shutoffs that engage when excessive loads are detected. Hydraulic systems limit the forces that implements can transmit to the tractor frame. Electronic governors prevent engines from developing power levels that exceed the machine's structural limits. Today, a modern tractor generating 600 horsepower operates with greater safety margins than the Type D managed with its 60 horsepower. The difference lies not in the power itself, but in the engineering philosophy that governs how that power is delivered and controlled. 3 Type D tractors survive today. One sits in the Smithsonian's agricultural collection, its massive engine permanently disabled. Another operates occasionally at the Antique Gas and Steam Engine Museum in Vista, California, though state regulations require it to be derated to 30 horsepower for public demonstrations. The third, privately owned by a collector in Nebraska, remains in original condition but hasn't operated since 1987, when insurance companies declared it uninsurable. The Type D teaches us that progress in agriculture, as in any field involving powerful machinery, requires more than raw capability. True advancement comes from understanding the relationship between power and control, between human limitations and mechanical possibilities. Hermann Schneck's monster tractor could pull anything a farmer might need to move. The question it raised, whether farmers needed to move those things, forever changed how we think about agricultural power. In the end, the machine that was too powerful revealed something profound about farming itself. Agriculture succeeds not through brute force, but through the careful application of appropriate force. The Type D had all the power in the world. What it lacked was wisdom. If this story reminded you why agricultural history matters, please hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories of farmers and mechanics who learned hard lessons about power and control. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're documenting the machines and the people who shaped American farming. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Texas, maybe Ontario or Saskatchewan? Our community stretches across every farming region. Tell us if your family ever encountered dangerous farm equipment, or if someone you know worked with these early powerful tractors. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Hermann Schneck and the Type D story doesn't disappear into silence. These farmers and their dangerous machines deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.